主上難力義 Good morning, everyone. Please join me in Gassho. Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu, Nam Mandax, Nam Mandax, Nam Mandax. Once again, good morning, everyone. When I'm actually recording this to you right now, it is Sunday morning around 6 a.m. To be perfectly honest with you all, I had no idea what I was going to discuss because, as many of you know, there was an election this week, and for many people on both sides of the aisle, I am certain that it was going to be very nail-biting and very stress-inducing. I know it caused me a lot of stress. And now, finally, with the result in, I feel like I can safely talk about the Dharma message that I'm going to share with you all today. So, of course, with every election, there is a winning side and then there's a losing side. People on both sides will feel something. Some people may be jumping for joy. Others may be pounding their fists on the table in anger. And we have to come back and remember, especially when it comes in terms of religion and when it comes to our faith, right, that the sun will rise again tomorrow. And I think that is one of the most important things that we can do as Buddhists, right? Because regardless of it all, we are still Jodo Shinshu Buddhists. The outcome of the election does not change that. Who gets put into office does not change our faith, all right? So I want everyone who is listening to this Dharma message now to take a deep breath and just reflect that no matter who wins this election, Amida Buddha still works for our benefit, right? Amida Buddha, Amida Nyorai, the Tathagata of immeasurable light and life, doesn't stop working for us. And Amida Buddha is not some god, not some deity that we pray to or that we say, please swing the election this way, or please don't let these other people win, right? Amida Buddha's scope of wisdom and compassion goes well beyond that, okay? So please, everyone, regardless of what side of the aisle you are on, just remember that Amida Buddha's wisdom and compassion never stop working for us, right? There is still nothing but wisdom and compassion that comes from the Pure Land. There's so many people in other religions, and again, I'm not trying to put down other religions, right? Everyone needs to have their own frame of reference. Everyone needs to have their spiritual understanding of things. But for some may see this as God's punishment or God's retribution, right? But us as Buddhists, us as Jodo Shinshu Buddhists, still again realize that regardless of who takes this office, regardless of anything, Amida Buddha still works for our benefit. Okay? So please, again, you may be feeling one thing, you may be feeling another thing. But that doesn't stop Amida Buddha's wisdom and compassion. Whether you are dancing for joy, whether you are terribly angry and upset, that is your own calculation. That is your inner feeling, right? That is the attachment. That is the emotional tether that ties you to this world, right? Amida Buddha still gives wisdom and compassion. Okay? We can still see the wisdom and compassion from the Pure Land in this very moment, in this life. Right? We see the two different reactions that people will have. And yet, Amida Buddha still works for us. And possibly realizing that these feelings too shall pass. Right? One day a person may be jumping for joy and dancing for joy, and the next day they may be really, really angry. And then that anger someday may turn back into joy. Right? All of that. I hate to say this, and again, we may not like to hear this, but all of that is bonbu. Right? All of that is bonno. Sorry. All of that is bonno. Right? And that is the thing that we as bonbu people do. I mean, I will even admit that I was a certain way, right? I can't say that here. I can't say what it was here. But what I will say is that regardless of how I felt, that didn't change Amida Buddha's working, right? Whether I'm angry, happy, or sad, Amida Buddha still is working. These are the matters of the earth. Now, that being said, all of that being said, matters of, our society, our law. I'm not saying that we as Buddhists transcend society, because we very much must live in this society, right? We very much must still live in this world under the, there is a term in Buddhism, right, that there is the king's law and then there's, the Dharma, right? And of course the Dharma is placed much higher, right? The Dharma law, right? But then, there's the king's law, right? And right now in this world we are living, and it's not, in America, right? It's not king, it's the president, right? We are living within the president's or Congress's law, whatever body, the three ring government, right? That is in our society who we, the entity that we live under right now, that we live in the present. Right? But that does not mean that there is no working from the Pure Land, that there is no wisdom and compassion that does come to us simply from tariki or other power. So I really want all of us to, once again, experience those feelings, right? Experience these feelings of joy, these feelings of happiness or these feelings of anger, these feelings of frustration, you need to acknowledge those feelings. You need to really get those feelings out. Don't do it in a destructive manner, right? We cannot forget all of the things around us, right? And terribly, and again, with people's reaction to what this election was, I think people kind of forgot that there is still a pandemic happening in this world right now, in our very society. Within the last couple of days, the United States has hit the highest record of COVID cases that has ever reached our shores, right? Again, all of us are just feeling these incredible emotions right now. And because of that, I think we kind of tend to forget the important things. Now, yes, I did see many people wearing masks, but not a lot of social distancing. So again, don't forget that there are other things that we also need to be aware of, right? Again, I'm not saying, don't feel don't feel this way or, detach yourself from your feelings, because as Bombu, we can't do that. It's virtually impossible. But at the same time, we have to come back to the realization, especially as Jodo Shinshu Buddhists, that regardless of this election, right, Amida Buddha's wisdom and compassion still works for us, still works for our enlightenment, right? The president's term is finite. Our lives are finite. Amida Buddha's wisdom and compassion, Amida, the Buddha of immeasurable light and life, is timeless, is endless. We cannot measure it. That's the in is that you cannot, right? Mida, you can't measure it. There is no measure to the wisdom and compassion that Amida Buddha gives to all of us freely, right? Non-stop, right? How we accept that is up to us. All of that being said, I can't help but also think of how we work with others in this life as well. And since this week, politics has been in the air so much, I'm actually recalled to think about a friendship that I have that is probably incredibly precious to me. That is incredibly precious to me. That is super precious to me. And that is my friendship with the Reverend Blaine Higa. For many of you, you remember that for our Eshini Kakushini service, we had actually scheduled Reverend Blaine Higa to come to our temple, Tacoma, to give a seminar about Eshini and Kakushini, and to be our guest speaker on Sunday. Right? This was scheduled way before the pandemic really took off, and it was also, we hadn't anticipated we would have to cancel the event. So unfortunately, we canceled the event, and we hadn't really decided as a temple yet, to possibly do like Zoom seminars or to do Zoom services, because I wanted to continue with the tradition of Reverend Dr. Takashi Miyagi's tradition of doing YouTube services. But I'd like to talk a little bit about my friendship with Blaine Higa, and maybe we can kind of see some parallels that are going on right now. So Reverend Blaine Higa and I became really close and became really good friends during our times at the Institute of Buddhist Studies. He came to IBS, I think, one semester after I started my term at IBS. And already, after our first conversation, we could tell that our opinions and our interpretation of the doctrine of Jodo Shinshu was starkly different. While Blaine, but I will admit this, Reverend Blaine Higa is a master he is a master of doctrine as it is, but he's also a master of innovation. He finds new ways to reach his Sangha, to connect with his Sangha. I, on the other hand, am, yes, some have accused me of being a fundamentalist. I don't think I go that far, but I will say that I fall more in line with Jodo Shinshu orthodoxy, right? Or that I I speak more in terms of how, of orthodoxy or I don't want to say the word conservative, but, Jodo Shinshu orthodoxy. I fall more in that line, traditionalism, right? Faith in the head temple. But then one thing that Reverend Blaine and I always agreed on was that the Nembutsu is everything. Apologies, the camera battery ran out. Maybe I talked too long, or maybe my screaming was making the camera weaker. But as I was saying and continuing, if there was one thing that Reverend Blaine and I agreed upon, it was that the Nembutsu was it, right? And not only that, but our most important mission, me as a prospective Kaikyoshi minister, and Reverend Blaine Higa as a Kaikyoshi minister, was to do all that we could to help spread Shindan Shonin's teaching across the United States, across overseas from Japan. And I think this is the one thing that really bonds me with Reverend Blaine Higa and everyone else as well, all the other ministers here in the BCA. It is that we have a common goal, and that is to share Shindan Shonin's message to everyone, right? Because, again, Shindan Shonin's message, while it may have started in Japan, right? While Jodo Shinshu may have began in Japan, while it has roots in Japan, it is not just for Japanese people. It is for all people. It is for all sentient beings. Amida Buddha, right? Amida Buddha doesn't just help Japanese people. Doesn't expect you to speak just Japanese, right? Amida Buddha's wisdom and compassion reaches beyond the 10 quarters, right? The 10 realm, beyond the 10 planes of existence. That is how much Amida Buddha's light emits to all of us. And what a wondrous thing that is. It's something so wonderful that we as mere mortals cannot even fathom it. We can't even conceive it. And yet, because of our limitations, because we cannot on our own achieve the ultimate awakening, Amida Buddha gives us the wisdom and compassion. Amida Buddha, we rely solely on that other power of Amida Buddha. So, again, we as people in this world can get upset about things. We can, and again, many of these things are very real. A lot of these things are, right? How this country is going to go now under new leadership, that is completely up to that leadership. And in the end, it's all of us who will either benefit or experience consequences from that. And so we definitely do need to still be engaged with society, right? We don't just, again, people often have this false notion of Buddhism that we are these soulless beings. Okay, well, that's probably not a good terminology because, the Buddha in Mahayana Buddhism, we don't have the same idea of soul as others do. But we are not these stone-cold beings who just detach themselves from society and just meditate in caves or just sit on rocks all day, right? We actually are a part of society. We live every day in society. We go to the grocery store. We drive our cars to work, right? We have all the same worries that you do, that everyone else does. This is who we are. And once again, in our particular tradition of Jodo Shinshu Buddhism, because of who we are, we must rely on Amida Buddha. And in that instance, that is where Reverend Blaine Higa and I agree, right? How we purport the messages, how we spread the Dharma, we definitely have stark differences in how we do that. What's important, right? what's important, right? What's important to teach? What are the important things to emphasize? Yes, we do have a huge amount of differences to that. And yet we still work together we still work together to help spread the teaching of Amida Buddha. Because in the end, it is Amida Buddha. Amida Buddha's wisdom and compassion that matters. That is the thing that matters. Again, not our personal feelings of what's important about temple or I like this particular part about temple, I don't like this particular part. I like this about that minister, I don't like that about that minister, right? I like this congregant, I don't like that congregant, right? All of that is our own calculation. That is our bonno. That is us being bonbu. But it is Amida Buddha's wisdom and compassion that continues to reach us to this day. So please, everyone, experience these feelings that you're feeling right now. They're raw. They are probably very, very still fresh, right? They're still there. But after those feelings have passed, and they will pass, regardless of what they are, once again, bring yourself back, once again, look towards either your obutsudan, or if you have a myogo, the myogo of the nembutsu, the 6 characters, Namo Amida Butsu, right? Look back to that. And again, really consider what that means. Immeasurable light, immeasurable life, nothing but wisdom, and nothing but compassion. What does that mean to you? How is that going to play in your life? How is that going to have an effect on the way that you act in society? I really encourage all of us to think about that. I would love for us to just be these, all of these myokoni, these, exceptional people, right? I don't know. I'm definitely not. But again, that is why we look towards Amida Buddha. We realize that Amida Buddha's working is constant and everlasting. So with that, I apologize for possibly this extra long, somewhat passionate Dharma talk. But in the midst of what has been happening now, I think it's important for us Jodo Shinshu Buddhists to once again not just experience these raw feelings of whether it's joy or anger, but to also once again bring ourselves back to what's really important when it comes to our tradition of Jodo Shinshu Buddhism, when it comes to Buddhism, how we handle that, and how we look at ourselves. So thank you again for joining me today. And remember, everyone, the pandemic is not over, right? That COVID-19 is still very much here and very much alive, and the colder days are coming. So dress warmly, social distance, wear a mask, wash your hands, use hand sanitizer, do all of these practices. We are coming up to some of the holidays here that we celebrate in America, Thanksgiving and Christmas. And I will have messages possibly pertaining to those in the days to come. But until we get there, please, once again, I know it's hard, isolation for our mental health. But right now, the number of people who have succumbed and who have been infected with COVID-19 is just too high. So I encourage all of you, please remember interdependence and do your part. Wear a mask, wash your hands, social distance, use hand sanitizer. Practice all of these things in our daily life. But most importantly, everyone, say the Nembutsu. Please join me in Gassho. Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu, Nam Mandats, Nam Mandats, Nam Mandats, Nam Mandats.